painting to photography, from beadwork to woodworking, KQAL-FM on the campus of Winona State University presents Art Beat. Art Beat highlights the work and accomplishments of local artists from in and around Winona. Support for Art Beat is made possible by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund.
Today on Art Beat, we take you back to the 2024 International Digital Media and Arts Association Conference and Exhibition, which ran from June 27th to June 30th, 2024 on the campus of Winona State University. International Digital Media and Arts Association, or IDMAa, is dedicated to showcasing new ideas and innovative developments within digital arts and digital media. This year's conference and exhibition focuses on the theme of wild media. This week on Art Beat, we sit down with Jon Malis to discuss his talk, Photoshop's Hallucinations and Other Digital Ghost Stories. We also speak with Rob Wittig about his workshop titled Netprov Playshop, Going Wild with Visible Language in Netprov. Jon Malis is an artist and associate professor of visual arts and the production director for photography at Loyola University in Baltimore, Maryland. Rob Wittig is a professor in the departments of art and design and writing studies at the University of Minnesota, Duluth. I'm Abby Hockey, inviting you to join me as we talk with Jon Malis and Rob Wittig on Art Beat. I'm Abby Hockey. You're listening to 89.5 KQAL. I am here with Jon Malis, and I just have a couple questions for you. First of all, how are you doing today?
I'm good, thanks. Just gave a presentation talking about my creative research, and I think it went well.
I would say so. I think it went really well. So first of all, have you thought about how the construction of photography is going to change as the technology starts to get more and more advanced? Do you think it will become more like messy in terms of like just the base elements, or do you think it's going to become more structured?
Personally, in a weird way, I hope it becomes messy because it's going to give me a lot more subject material to work with. But I do think with the evolution of technology, really, photography, it's advancing at such a quick rate in terms of what we can and can't do with a camera now. Cameras are getting smaller, more powerful. We can almost see in complete darkness now. All these kind of technical limitations to the medium that we had in like my generation, our parents' generation, these big clunky cameras. That's kind of all gone now. It's like I have the smartphone in my pocket and it can do more than any other camera I grew up with as a child with. So the technology, it really does, as it gets smoother, smaller, more advanced, it really does kind of create a whole new way of image making and visual storytelling just through the fact that we can have a camera almost anywhere.
In terms of that, what do you think like AI's role in photography should be, and also like in media in general?
I mean, I think the role of AI in photography really kind of comes down to kind of two different places. You know, you have the idea of kind of creative expression, where I'm able to use AI in these kind of really creative ways to help me make images and show things that we wouldn't be able to see kind of using traditional technologies or traditional means. But then I think also the challenge of AI and visual imaging is how do we detect it so that we still are able to kind of thinking about photojournalism, visual storytelling, where truth in the image is still so paramount, making sure that there is kind of the sanctity of the image still. So it's this interesting duality that, you know, we're seeing kind of, I think right now we're seeing this play out real time on Instagram, where Instagram's kind of starting to tag everything made with AI. A lot of images that are being tagged with this made with AI tag aren't actually made with AI, but because of different tools that are used in Photoshop in the production of images through, in a lot of cases, kind of industry standard techniques that are okay in the journalism world, these images are still getting tagged with made with AI. And it's kind of this really interesting thing of, all right, we're trying to be aware of this, but are we being so aware of it that actual real documentary content is now being falsely flagged as kind of the creative fictions of the computer and technology as well?
Yeah, so it's a little bit kind of like a false citation in a way for like AI and things like that.
Definitely, you know what I mean? These technologies, they will get better over time, and I'm sure at a certain point we will find ways to be able to kind of identify AI versus non-AI imagery, but at the same time, AI is going to be improving so much faster than a lot of kind of these AI detection mechanisms. We're still, and there are a lot of ways around it. So it's kind of, I think this weird duality that we're being set up for is this idea of we can't just trust a photograph anymore, but we really have to trust where the photograph is coming from and who's putting it forward.
Sweet. And then so this is just a random question, but why do you think it is so hard for people to make or draw hands?
The real reason hands are such a challenge is because there's so many different positions they can be in. It's like generally when we think of a body, most bodies generally from a rendering, from a figure drawing perspective, are all pretty much the same. The problem is hands, because we can have so many different positions. We have so many different articulated joints in our digits and our fingers. Ultimately, there's just the range and permutation of possibilities is such that it's really hard to kind of practice and get it all down so many times. So it really kind of takes this innate creative artistic practice and talent to be able to render hands really well, and that's really kind of one of the same problems that technology has, is as AI is generating kind of everything based off these data sets in this training material, there are only a finite number of images that can be used by the AI algorithm to be able to kind of understand hands and the poses. So anytime it's generating something where it might not have been trained in that specific pose, it has to start improvising and going off on its own. And that's really where we see the problems happening. So it's really just the hands both are complex from a anatomical and physiological standpoint, and then just coupled with the amount of positions and the variability in how we use our hands. I think it's a similar problem that looks different and has different. It's the same fundamental issue. It's just we're seeing the results come in two very different ways. Where it's with humans, we have that understanding that yes, people have 5 fingers, right? That is just something that we presume as a near almost absolute. Versus AI hasn't necessarily made that leap when it's depicting. I'm not going to say it doesn't know what it's depicting, but I'm also not going to say it knows what it's depicting in the same way that when we're in a physical space and we see someone, that we know what we're depicting and that we have those kind of innate background knowledges that we can then apply back in to be like, all right, well, the proportions might be off and I might have a claw hand, but I still have the right number of digits and these kind of other fundamental things that we as humans assume to be the standard, versus what AI is just like, oh, it's that thing that holds that's connected to another thing,
Just a couple more questions. What would you define a picture to be?
What would I define a picture to be? It's a challenging question, actually, because at its core, a picture is almost anything and everything. Photographs are pictures. Paintings, in a way, are pictures, right? Is a picture really just any sort of visual representation, or is a picture limited more towards a photograph or kind of these, what we kind of in a way think of as a snapshot moment? I don't know what a good answer to that question is. I think it's a term we use a lot, but I think it's a really ambiguous term in itself.
Yeah. I think that's so as well. I think, our eyes are constantly taking pictures kind of like a camera would, and so in the end we're all kind of sort of living a giant video in a way.
It's taking a mental picture too, right? It's that same idea, photographic memory, mental picture. How is that different when we're kind of trying to define these terms than what a camera produces?
All right, and then so your research went to kind of like sort of deconstructing a picture and trying to find sort of those atoms kind of photographs and Photoshop and things like that. What other things do you think people should be deconstructing more in their lives that you think could like really help people?
I don't know if it's deconstructing as much as constructing an awareness of, which I guess to be able to understand how something works, it does help to deconstruct it. I guess growing up as a kid, I was always the one taking things apart, trying to figure out how it all worked. So from that standpoint, I think it's really about gaining an understanding in whatever it is we're working with, So for artists, photographers, pretty much anyone who deals with visual culture, I think it's helpful to understand kind of what a photograph is. Similarly, those of us who write or even just read a book, what is a book? Kind of how does writing work? It's kind of that same thing, I think, in a lot of ways. But I think it's really as we're going forward, it's just bringing kind of an awareness of kind of how we're interacting with everything on that daily basis back into our lives, can kind of help us be a bit more, dare I say, mindful and understanding how it is we go about what we do.
Sweet. Do you know what's next for you in terms of this project? And
so really, I've spent a lot of time asking the big questions and kind of diving into creating the work, but one thing I haven't done as much is really kind of thinking about how to present the work, So some of the things I was talking about today, some of this research has kind of been exhibited as its own bodies of work. Other of it is work in progress. Other things are sketches and ideas for things for the future. So it's really kind of, for me, I think a lot of kind of thinking about how to synthesize it all and put it out into the world, be it, am I, for this one specific part, how am I going to turn these digital artifacts into an image, or kind of how do I best visualize this in a way that is engaging, be it in a gallery, online, or kind of whatever other venue it is. So it's a lot of the questions have been asked, but a lot of it the answers don't really live in the world yet.
And then finally, one last question. What would you hope that people would get out of your presentation or your talk?
I think really just, if there's one thing I hope people could walk away from, I think it's really just an appreciation of the intricacies of everything that we see and engage with at that deeper level. It's not just a photograph, but really kind of thinking about, all right, how is this photograph constructed, and does it matter how this photograph was constructed? Or really kind of trying to understand not just what it is we're seeing, but kind of build our own dictionaries and understandings of how we see it.
Sweet. I'm Abby Hockey with Jon Malis here. Thank you so very much for your just everything. Yeah.
Thank you very much. This is my second time back here at Winona, and it's really great to be back. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. For more information on Jon's work, go to jonmalis.com. Now, let's hear from Rob Wittig, who led a workshop titled Netprov Playshop, Going Wild with Visible Language in Netprov. First of all, what got you interested in Netprov?
Netprov, which is sort of when people collaborate together in electronic media to create stories and do fictions. I found myself just doing it with friends, and that's sort of the way my imagination runs. Like anytime there's a new place to write, some kind of a new platform, my tendency is to all of a sudden character voices come in, and I start creating characters that are in there, and they're having trouble in the new platform, or they're having, things are going on, and it's a way of playing with the possibilities and the limits of new platforms. Yeah. And then it's also just fun. It's like when people do Dungeons and Dragons, and the people, especially the people who really like the storytelling part more than the conflict and game part. Yeah. It's just a fun way of being creative with friends. And so I saw myself doing it. I saw other people that I knew doing it, and I started to go, well, I think this is the beginning of a new art form. And let's see if we can get some people together and see if we can get really good at it. And so that was the origins of my interest.
Sweet. Are there some things like, some context that you believe is crucial for people to know before partaking in Netprov?
I think it helps to just have a few ground rules, like when we play Netprov together, we all respect each other and we all love each other, and we're all going to have fun and treat each other nicely. And that doesn't mean that you can't have, characters, role-play characters that do, nefarious things and that kind of thing. But just in terms of the actual group of people who's playing the Netprov, you want to just really treat people with respect. And it's the kind of, basic rules of any sort of game where you just want to do that. But beyond that, it's just, bring your imagination, bring your sense of fun, and let's play.
Yeah, and I think that rule is kind of a universal thing too. Just respect other people, be kind.
But it does get kind of difficult because the platforms, generally in Netprovs, we don't build our own platforms, but we just use whatever platform people are using at the moment. But there's a lot of toxicity on a lot of the platforms. So more and more as the years go by, we find that we need to be extra careful.
Yeah. Do you think that using a Netprov is a good educational tool for understanding learning disabilities like dyslexia?
I think it could be. I know people have done Netprovs that are very kind of specifically targeted for certain kinds of situations, and I think again, I wouldn't feel competent doing that myself, but were I to collaborate with somebody who teaches about education and disabilities or something like that, then I'm sure that Netprovs could be designed to give that exact kind of experience for the players.
Yeah, when you were talking about how taking out the e's in words or putting in one word into another word, it made me think of their learning disabilities and just ways of that people think that it is kind of like that. So Netprov can also be used potentially in a way to kind of see from that sort of perspective.
I think very much it could, and it, generally, the kind of open-ended Netprovs that my collaborator Mark Marino and I usually do are pretty open-ended. But again, in a situation like that, you'd want to make sure that there was just a brief, a simple explanation of we're going to experiment, and in this, we're going to play a game, and in this game, you're going to kind of experience something that's akin to what people who have a certain learning disability might feel, or something like that. Again, I don't know. I'm not an expert in how to frame it, but I'm sure it can be done.
Yeah. And then, in terms of language in general, what do you believe the rules should be?
I think, in my talk for the conference here, I kind of suggested, or I pointed out that English spelling, for example, has remained pretty unchanged for a very long time. That's not typical of the history of the language, where spelling changes a great deal, and that we're in a period that kind of coincides. We're in a period that coincides with sort of the colonial period, where standardized spelling was a big important thing. And my guess is it's a curiosity and a guess, but my guess is that spelling in English is going to start to get varied again and start to change and morph. And the image that I like about languages is that they're like big old rivers like the Mississippi, where they just go where they want to go, and you can, they over the years they choose their own path, and they don't care what's there, and they evolve the way they kind of want to evolve. And I think that's beautiful, and I don't see that it's even possible for English to be frozen right now. It's going to continue to change.
Yeah. And then just one last question for you. What do you hope that people take away from your workshop?
Just an encouragement, a reminder that with nothing but a couple of pens and a couple of pieces of paper, or you can do things on your phones if you have a platform. But you can sit around with friends and have a great deal of fun playing imaginative writing games with people, and writing things and cracking everybody up and reading things to each other out loud. And it's a really fun activity. And I love doing it in person, just sitting around the living room with friends. But you can also do it with friends around the world and have that same fun.
Sweet. Once again, my name is Abby Hockey. I am here with Rob Wittig. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks again to Jon Malis and Rob Wittig for joining us today on Artbeat. To learn more about Jon's work, go to jonmalis.com. To find out more about Rob and his work, go to robwit.net. To learn more about the International Digital Media and Arts Association, go to IDMAa.org. For more conversations on art, tune into Artbeat Tuesdays at 12:30 right here on 89.5 KQAL. For podcasts of Artbeat and other KQAL original programming, go to kqal.org. I'm Abby Hockey, and we've just heard from Jon Malis and Rob Wittig on Artbeat.
Artbeat is written and produced by KQAL-FM on the campus of Winona State University. Visit us on the web at kqal.org.